Well, good afternoon. This is the Central Florida Computer Society and the Windows Special Interest Group, or WinSIG, for April 14th, 2019. We present from Bradenton, Florida, to the Central Florida Computer Society meeting in Castleberry, Florida, which is in the Orlando area and about 120 miles from me. We do this every second Sunday of the month, and we welcome computer users from around the country and around the world to join us. We have lots of room online on Zoom, and for those who are in attendance today, thank you for joining. There is a chat section that you can get to and write down questions. I tried to look at it as I'm going through, but if not, as I get to the end, I will try to answer your questions. But I also like to do it as we go along. I have a lot of material to cover today. I'm going to try to show a video at the end for those in the Orlando area. And others are welcome to watch it, but it's about Orlando. And then in the middle of this, for a lot of you who have been attending my presentations on cutting the cord, this past week I did a presentation to the Central Iowa Computer User Group, and I added a couple of slides, and I've since added a couple of more, and I'm going to use that section this afternoon and cover a couple of things that I think should be of interest to all of you. So we are recording, and we're ready to go. So again, this is the Central Florida Computer Society, and there's my screen, and let's bring up our schedule. Let me make it larger. Here we go. Come on. And let me full screen it. Okay, these are the topics I'm going to try to cover today. I also had a whole bunch of really good articles on what's coming in the Windows 1903 version, but since it's not going to be released until next month, I thought I'd wait till next month and cover all of the new items and be able to show you and demonstrate some of the new features. So we're not going to be covering that today. We have some general things and some specific. So let's get started. How to clean your flat screen TV. Now, this article not only is flat screen TVs, but we're using the same technology for our monitors. So I thought that this would fit for all of you. All of you have TVs, I presume, as well. The only problem of going to a lot of these websites, they have so many ads. Anyway, you've got to be very careful with the flat screen. Now, in the days of the tube TVs, the CRTs, as long as you had the screen off, you could wipe them down very easily without any problems. But what you have to remember, like other electronic items, televisions can attract dust and get marred by blemishes such as children's fingerprints. Fortunately, cleaning your flat screen TV is a straightforward process that doesn't require any pricey special chemicals. In fact, don't use any chemicals on them. Now, the other thing is I have a touchscreen. I got a 23-inch touchscreen on my desktop. You probably don't, but a lot of you are using laptops, which can be anywhere from 11 inches. For some of you are using up to 15-inch and maybe even larger, and have a touch screen on them as well. So a lot of this will also be of interest to you for your laptops. Though the current TV market is dominated by super bright big screen LCD or LED and OLED TVs, many of us still have the older sets, including plasma TVs, which they stopped manufacturing, believe it or not, in 2014. And even CRTs, some of you may be using, the old tube TVs, which started disappearing about 2008, over 11 years ago. So if you're cleaning an older tube TV, then you have a bit more flexibility because their screens are made of glass. It can be cleaned like any other glass item in your household. But this isn't true of LCDs and TVs. They're far more sensitive and need to be carefully cleaned so the screens don't get scratched or damaged. And though plasma TVs also have glass screens, manufacturers often have applied a sensitive anti-glare coating, so they should be treated like any LCD TV rather than a CRT TV. For OLED LEDs, the advice is similar to LCDs: clean with a soft, dry cloth to avoid scratching the screen. In all cases, turn off the TV or your monitor and even unplug them prior to cleaning. In addition to it being safer for the set, it's usually easier to see the dirt or finger smudges when the screen is dark, and it gives the TV a chance to cool down. If you have any doubts about the type of TV you have, you can always consult the owner's manual. Okay, so here are some tips. Start with a dry, soft cloth. Don't use paper towels. Don't use toilet paper. Don't use Kleenex. When I say Kleenex, that's a generic term for facial tissues, facial towels, or whatever you want to call them. A lot of them have chemicals in them, and they also have ridges of some sort and can scratch. You want to use an anti-static microfiber cloth. You can find them anywhere. Sometimes they're like three for $3 or 3 for $4. They're usually no more than $1 a piece, but sometimes you got to buy 3 or 4 of them. That's not a bad idea to have them, especially those of us who wear glasses. I like to have one in the car. I like to have one in my desk. I like to have one by the monitor, and so on. You may also want to wipe down the TV's cabinet and make sure the dust isn't clogging the vents that help dissipate heat. If you have a pet, you're going to have lots of dog hairs or cat hairs and so on. You want to make sure you're keeping the vents clear of the hairs. And if it's the type where you can blow it out, I would blow it out as well. If the TV is on a stand and not tethered to the wall, clean with one hand while supporting the TV with the other to prevent the set from tipping over. We recommend anchoring all TV-mounted TVs for anti-tipping straps designated for that purpose. If there are more stubborn stains, you can dampen the cloth slightly with distilled water and gently clean the screen. Don't spray water directly onto your screen, which could cause a shock or component failure if it drips in and seeps into the inner workings of the set. For truly stubborn stains, you can try using a solution of very mild dish soap, highly diluted with water, once again applied to the cloth and not to the TV itself. And don't take your monitor. Don't take your monitor and dip it into a large pail or your bathtub either. As a guideline to how much soap to use, Panasonic used to recommend a 100-to-1 ratio of water versus soap. LCD screens in particular are very sensitive to pressure and can scratch easily, so don't press too hard as well when you're cleaning. You don't want to, remember your screen's made of little LEDs or LCDs, and you don't want to damage your screen. Avoid any harmful chemicals. If you're using a dish soap, Dawn is probably the best one out there, but just be careful that there's no alcohol or ammonia in windows cleaners such as Windex. Can really ruin your flat screen TV, so don't use cleaners that have them. If you decide to use a packaged screen cleaner, which you don't really need, choose one that clearly states that it doesn't contain alcohol or ammonia. If you do them, what you're going to start seeing is some spots where there's some film that it leaves on the screen, or it will scratch the screen. Skip the cleaning kits. There are stores that charge $15 to $20 for a kit that includes a microfiber cloth, which you can buy for $1 or less. Go to the dollar store and buy microfiber cloths there. And a small bottle of cleaning solution, a solution that's probably mostly water anyway. Instead, buy the cloth at an office supply store or online, or use distilled water or a solution of your own making per the advice above. And make sure there's no alcohol or ammonia. And don't forget the remote control. Clean that on a regular basis as well. Some people did some testing of the remotes, and they are just loaded with germs. So do wipe them down with on a regular basis as well. Clean them and shake them. Try to get anything out from between the keys. So that's that article. The next article is how does DuckDuckGo protect your personal information online? And I found a couple other articles too, and I think one of them has got a link in this article. But if you don't know what DuckDuckGo is, just go to DuckDuckGo.com. And they claim that it protects your personal information online. Instead of using Google or instead of using Chrome, instead of using Google search, you can use Google Chrome or use IE or Edge or whatever you're using, but go to DuckDuckGo as your search engine. While that's reasonably true, it's still important to understand that what gives DuckDuckGo its privacy simplified motto. Unlike many other search engines like Google, DuckDuckGo doesn't care about your personal information, which sounds like every web surfer's fantasy. Let's make this bigger for you. So exactly what does it put a stop to violating your privacy? Or how exactly does it? These insights will help you know the inner workings of DuckDuckGo. What is search leakage? When you use a typical search engine, every click reveals a piece of information about you. This nugget of personal data gets released to not just the search engine, but to every website you click on and in the results page. DuckDuckGo calls this phenomenon search leakage. A single search reveals more than just the terms you used. Websites also collect factors used to identify you, such as your IP address and your user agent. In other words, what you're using to connect with. The most concerning part of such search leakage is the connection between your search terms and your personal information. In other words, websites know who you are and what you search for, and that's valuable to them. So how does DuckDuckGo prevent this? It automatically protects you from this search leakage. It means you don't need to change your user agent or enable private browsing in order to search safely on DuckDuckGo. And there's an article here on how to enable private browsing in your browser, and that's a separate article, and I'm not going to go to it right now, but I would suggest you read that article as well. But DuckDuckGo covers your tracks by rerouting your clicks. Websites won't know which search terms you use to reach them. It uses encryption as an extra layer of security while also displaying encrypted versions of websites in search results. DuckDuckGo gives you the option of using post requests as well. Post requests stop search leakage by preventing your search from appearing in your browser altogether. So, and since encryption can slow your connection down, using post requests can disable your back button. You can choose to toggle these features on and off by going to other settings and privacy. So there's a good article, and then how does DuckDuckGo handle search history? So on. I'm not going to read this whole thing to you. DuckDuckGo is a search engine. And as we go and look at some of the pages today, you're going to see a lot of ads for a program called InPixio, because I was doing some searching on it, and I did download and install the software. Actually, I purchased it. And so you're going to see a lot of ads for that because all these search engines know and all these websites know that I was searching for it and looking and connecting to sites that had information about it. Okay, let's go to the next topic, and this actually is a whole section. I don't know if you're aware, but AT&T boasts about the 5G service in 19 cities. They're claiming that they now have 5G available in 19 different cities. However, as you'll see in this article, there's still no phone that can use it. So having the service is great, but we can't use it. There's starting to be a couple of the phones, some of the newer phones. I think it was the Samsung 10 that's either just out or is coming out. Yeah, and it's marking it here. It mentions it here. So far this year, these are going to be available to U.S. I'm not sure if they already are or they're going to be, but the Verizon exclusive Samsung Galaxy S10, Verizon and Sprint exclusive LG V50, and they're supposed to come with some 5G versions as well. Because not only do you need 5G as in the community, but you need to have some equipment that's going to connect with the 5G. And I'm going to talk a little bit more. I'm going to get more into this a little bit so you understand what 5G is. But just the fact that 5G is available by AT&T, and it is available, and then we're going to find this in one of the articles, it's available in the Orlando area. So some of you who live in the city of Orlando, I don't know how far out of the central area of Orlando that it will go, but it is currently available or will be in the next month or so. So let's go to the next article, which is what is 5G. Now, this article, I was looking at it earlier, and there's a picture here, and I'm going to talk more about this in my addendum to my presentation, so I'm not going to go into that picture that much, but something's trying to come up here. An ad, so that made that somewhere's here. There's an ad. It's trying to come up. But anyway, what is 5G? 5G networks, it's waiting for the search. See, I told you something was coming up here. Let me close this. Oh, this is Tech Radar. They are terrible. They're a terrible website. They, let's see, what do they want here? We value your show purposes. I accept. I don't see a non-accept, and I don't see a way to shut this down. Okay, you got to have cookies. All right. Anyway, the 5G networks are the next generation of mobile internet connectivity. You see, these ads keep popping up and make the screen go crazy. Tech Radar is a terrible site for ads. I hope they're making tons of money because they certainly put a lot of ads on their web pages. And as you scroll down, they keep changing and they move them around. Anyway, combining cutting-edge network technology and the very latest research, 5G should offer connections that are multitudes faster than current connections. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit. See, there's a video. It shows up here and everything. Anyway, I'm going to talk a little bit about this in my presentation slides, so I'm not going to go into this too much, but with development well underway and testbeds already live across the world, 5G networks are expected to launch across the world by 2020, working alongside existing 3G and 4G technology. 4G technology is this. The G stands for generation, and the fourth generation technology is also called LTE on the most of the phone systems. But 5G is going to be so much faster, and there's a whole section here on 5G news. And if I can swing down, this article it's got to load the ads, so it just doesn't work very well. Anyway, there's more information on the 5G farther down. I don't want to spend a lot of time on the recording on that, but If you go to there, you can find it quicker on your own computer, and you don't have to worry about it being in the recording. Now, find out if the 5G network is near me. Now, when I looked at this the first time, there was a link somewhere, and you could put in your zip code, and it would tell you. And this is a nice article from Kim Commando, and she's usually got some good articles. Again, she does a lot of advertising as well. And then there's links to other articles. Here's an InPixio ad that I was talking about. Where can you get access to 5G? Verizon has. They're going to launch sometime this month. Chicago, Minneapolis will be the start, but it'll be limited to high-profile areas around the Verizon stores. You're just going to have to wait in most areas. You're going to pay $10 per device on top of the fee for an unlimited plan. However, they currently are waiving those charges to get people on. No 5G pricing or other information is available. They're going to have Atlanta, Chicago, Dallas, Kansas City, Kansas launch this May. Similar to Verizon, they won't provide coverage citywide, only in select areas. AT&T, they're currently mislabeling their 4G as 5GE, and that's what my phone says, but it's still 4G. But the 5G is going to come out in Atlanta, Charlotte, North Carolina, Dallas, Houston, Jacksonville, Florida, and it provides 5G service in 9 more cities later this year, let's see, including Orlando, Florida. Expecting to have their nationwide 5G in place by early next year. And then there's T-Mobile. And then what about 5G smartphones? If you're planning on getting your hands on that 5G smartphone, there are some things you want to consider first. Despite Motorola, Samsung, LG, and a plethora of other smartphone manufacturers releasing 5G smartphones to the market, prices that come with those may be staggering. So just because it's going to be out there doesn't mean you're going to be wanting to spend the money to do it. And the 5G terminology, and there's a whole section on that. So if you want to learn more about 5G, it's there. And then going along with this, and I'm going to talk more about this in my my presentation in the next section, is Amazon is planning to launch thousands of satellites to offer high-speed internet. I don't know if you've been reading about any of this, but this was in the news last week, 10 days ago. Want one more option for home internet? Let me make this bigger so you can see it on the screen easier. Come on. Trying to make it bigger. Now what I do? Oh, I made it real big. Well, let's go back one year. There we go. It was announced that Amazon is planning to launch 3,236 satellites to build a network to provide a global high-speed internet. Unlike current satellite internet, these devices will be in a far lower orbit and offer far faster speeds compared to the current satellite systems. And this, Amazon's calling theirs Project Kuiper, which is a new initiative to launch a constellation of low Earth orbit satellites. They're called LEO, low Earth orbit satellites, that will provide low latency, high-speed broadband connectivity to unserved and underserved communities around the world. The idea is not new, as SpaceX has already launched a few orbit test satellites for their network. Reports say SpaceX plans to launch 425 satellites. SoftBank, they're backing something called OneWeb, has also launched 6 satellites with the goal of launching 650 more to offer internet service from space. This is good news for cord cutters, as it brings more options for home internet. Combined with 5G, fiber, and fixed wireless internet, soon your home internet options will no longer be limited to DSL or cable. So we're going to see other than your typical cable companies offering you into internet. And this is great news for rural Americans in developing countries. That just should mean higher speed internet, even if you live far from a city. And so let me come out of this, and then I want to go. These are the slides that I am adding to my presentation. So let me start the PowerPoint. And let me start here. So this is an addendum, and I put this slide together very quickly, and I wanted to make sure I didn't get a addendum misspelled, so I just called it addition to cut the cord. This is the screen for my presentation, and what I added a few of these slides to my latest presentation, as I said, to Central Iowa, but I've now added a few more slides to explain. So I think this will help understand some of the things that I was just talking about. The first one is what's coming. We got 5G coming, and we got satellite constellations coming. Let me clear my throat here for a minute. Excuse me. And whoops. So, what is 5G? Here's kind of 3G, 4G, and 5G compared. You got your 3G runs about in 2001 is when it came out, and it was around 384 kilobytes per second. Not very fast, but when we got 4G or LTE, you could get speeds in 100 megabytes per second, more or less. And that was 2009. They've improved it now. You can get even faster than that. But for the most part, it's roughly 100 megabits per second. And now these are what you get on your cell phones, not what you're getting from your Wi-Fi at home. This is what you're getting from your cell phone, or if you're tethering, or if you are buying a hotspot that connects to a cell and then connects to your phone or to your laptop or to your desktop, you're going to get speeds of probably no more than about 100 megabits per second. However, when you go to 5G, you're going to get 10 gigabits per second. And that's going to be next year. And that's going to give you the speed you need to play high-speed games, to do a lot of doing your TV through the internet and so on. You're going to be able to get very high speed, as well as with 5G. What you're going to start seeing is you're going to start seeing a lot of automobiles having 5G built into them, because it's the way 5G is going to work is it needs to be very close, and so they're using a lot of light posts and so on. Typically in a city, they're going to be able to put 5G towers in a lot of buildings that not only are going to cover from building to building, but from within the buildings. Now, if you're not in the downtown area where these tall buildings are, what they're going to do is, where we now have 4G towers that cover a fairly wide area, you're going to get 5G cells. You're going to have one tower, and then it's going to feed other towers that are going to be, say, on light posts. And you know how close light posts are in cities. Well, you're going to have the small cell antennas will be placed on street light poles, on buildings, even on your home, to boost signals, particularly in densely populated areas. Also, the 5G networks will need the construction of new cell towers, antennas, and other infrastructure, which will require laying new webs of fiber optics underground to connect the cell towers and antennas. There's going to be a lot of newer technology and a lot of new things going on. You're going to see people complaining, not in my backyard. In other words, I don't want a tower that close to my house, and so on. But it's going to require that, and you're going to see a lot of that. So what we've got here are some poles, and this is how where there's regular telephone poles, where these will go on the poles, so they're going to be fairly close together. But as you're driving down the street where these poles are, you're going from one to the other, so your car is going to be able to be picking up 5G, so you're going to be able to have internet access built into your car, and as you drive down the road, you're going to be able to listen to any music. You're going to be able to listen to Pandora. You're going to be able to have maps. Hopefully not the driver, but the passenger is going to be able to look up information, find restaurants, a lot of things you're doing on your phone, but do it at extremely high speed. Not your car, but the internet's going to be high speed. You don't want to drive fast to make get the information quicker. So 5G technology is expected to officially launch across the world by 2020, with test beds in the US and the UK already live. US, China, and South Korea are expected to be some of the first nations to deploy 5G networks, with the UK not far behind. And I've read some articles where several people are really concerned that China is going to really go strong with the 5G much quicker than we are, and they're going to be really connected and not connected with the rest of the world, but have their own 5G network, so they can pump out the information they want in their area, but it's also going to be able to get information out to their entire population much easier. Many companies are busy making sure their networks and devices are 5G ready in time for 2020, meaning some networks may launch before then. Now, when we're talking about the satellite constellations, switching from the 5G, the other thing that's going to be there is these networks of satellites that are going to be out there. And I mentioned to you, Amazon's got Project Kuiper that's going to have 3,236 satellites, and these are going to vary in distance from the Earth, about 367 miles up, 379, and 391. Now, this is closer to the Earth than the International Space satellite that's out there, the space center that's going around the Earth. So there's going to be actually lower than that. OneWeb is going to have 656 satellites at about 750 miles, and they've already got 6 satellites deployed. Elon Musk's company, SpaceX, is going to have over 4,000 satellites, and they're going to be in the 215 mile to 342 miles to 715 miles. And then Telstat is going to be in Canada, and they're going to be doing something very similar. And there will be others. Now, here's a rendition of what this is going to look like. You're going to have all of these different orbital planes and little satellites going around the Earth. Now, this was just the OneWeb, which at 342 miles up. Then you're going to have another group from SpaceX that's going to be in a different plane at a different level in all of those. There's going to be thousands and thousands of little space satellites, or little satellites up in space. And some of the worries are the fact that a lot of these are only going to have a lifespan of about 5 years. But what happens when they die? Well, they're going to fall back to Earth. Are they going to have a way of getting them back to Earth? I think it's Amazon is trying to work on a way to either have drones with some kind of a thing to catch them, or they may have built-in safety, some kind of what's the word I want that you have in the backpack when you jump out of a plane? Anyway, another parachute. They have some kind of a parachute to collect them, and are they going to break up in space and little pieces fall around the Earth? These are concerns, and there's when you got thousands of these, and then also them bumping into the Space Center, other satellites going up, other rockets going up in the air, and so on. There's a lot of debris going on in space. So the next generation or two have got a lot to worry about. Now, just to give you an idea what we're talking about, the OneWeb satellite is being manufactured in the picture on the top left, so you can get an idea about how big it is and what it's going to look like. And you're going to have thousands of these. Well, the OneWeb you're going to have what's less than 1,000. But the SpaceX Starlink, this one, there's two of them mounted on the same rocket to go up and be released at the same time. And what I did is I took the picture and then made it so you could just see one of them so you don't get too confused with all of this. But it's fairly large. It's not just, it's not the size of a basketball. It's going to be bigger than that. And you're going to have thousands of these floating around up in space. So it's a bit scary, but it's also a bit exciting, the fact that we're going to have all this internet available to us without the current companies controlling it. So the satellite constellations in low Earth orbit, or LEOs, are thought to represent the next frontier for low latency, high bandwidth, and low cost connectivity. And one of the ways of keeping the costs low is like SpaceX having their rockets be able to go up, put the satellites in space, and then the rockets come back to Earth. And they've been fairly successful now in being able to do that. And so that should be able to keep the costs of some of these things down. And so hopefully that the cost of internet access is going to be kept at a minimum as well. So that's the section I've added now to my presentation on cutting the cord, because with the high speeds that we're going to have, you're going to be able to get your TV streamed through this very high-speed internet with very little problems, and it's going to be, you're going to see TV as fast or faster than you see it now. In other words, it's going to be instant. There's not going to be a lot of lag. There's not going to be a lot of buffering. It's going to be, and you're going to be able to get it everywhere. So these are things to consider, and those of us who are seniors, and probably most of you who are on with this presentation we sometimes think, well, yeah, it's not going to happen in my lifetime. I'm not even going to worry about it. We're talking in the next couple of years. So it's going to vastly change the way we think about connecting. So you might want to keep track of these things now that I've introduced you to this, because a lot of you probably didn't even know a lot of this was going on. Kind of keep your eye out for what's happening and how some of these things are developing. Before I go on, are there any questions in the audience about this?
Yes. You hear, Ted?
You may have to repeat it, but I can hear them, but I'm not sure if I can understand what the question will be. Go ahead.
I read an article about medical problems with 5G. The old bugaboo about medical problems. Which side are you on?
I'm excited that there's new technology coming.
Me too.
You know, we heard that with early televisions. We heard it with early radios. We heard it with phones, mobile phones. Yeah, people are dying of something. I don't want to die of nothing. I don't want to die of nothing. But you know, is it? You know, maybe some people are going to have issues with it. Maybe there are some problems. They'll figure it out. So I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to sit on top of a telephone pole that has one of these cells in it. but I don't think I could climb that telephone pole anyway. So I'm not overly worried about it. I leave that to the politicians to argue and fight over it. I'm not going to worry about it. Any other questions?
Yes, I have one. Is it your understanding that, for example, the Amazon set of low at Leo's is going to require some sort of a piece of equipment that will be different from the ones that other people are using? You have to have either rent from them or buy your own modem, essentially.
Yeah, I'm not sure. There hasn't been anything said about that, how you receive it. So I am not sure, whether something like like say a Roku that you can get different streams through. They all go through one piece of equipment, and whether you have a Roku or you have a Fire TV or something else, I'm not sure how all of that's going to work. I've not read any articles about that, but I'm guessing that they'll get that worked out. Maybe in the beginning you may need different pieces of equipment, and eventually they'll find ways to connect them. But it's like, well, if you subscribe to, in my area, I subscribe to Frontier to get my internet. Well, if I want to get Spectrum, they have to come in and give me different wire and different piece of equipment.
Yep.
So it's probably going to be something like that, as I think about it.
Did you see that Disney has announced that they're going to have their own streaming service called Disney Plus, which will include, I think, Hulu, Netflix, a number of the standard premium channels, and you'll be able to get 4 or 5 of them all with one subscription to this Disney Plus. They haven't announced pricing yet, and I don't think it's going to be ready until December of this year. But everybody's getting into this. Is all becoming one blurry area: the cell phone, the TV streaming, that internet.
Yeah, and I've been mentioning that in my presentation on cutting the cord for the last year, and as it's been developing over the last year, it has changed a lot. More and more companies are going to streaming. You're going to see, for instance, DirecTV, which is the satellite company, as opposed to DirecTV Now, which is the streaming part from AT&T. But DirecTV, their satellite, they're going to have a box that's going to be connected to the internet, and everything's going to be streamed, and they're going to be doing away with their dishes. And you're probably going to see that happen in the next year. So those of you who have dishes, you're going to start getting advertisements and propaganda from them to transition to the new technology, and they'll swap out the equipment they have now, and you'll get different equipment, and it'll all be then coming through the internet. So yeah, we're seeing more and more of that, but also what's happening is a lot of these companies that are streaming are now combining. As you know, Disney owns ABC TV. They just bought the Fox Entertainment, not the Fox News, but the Fox Entertainment. In other words, all the 20th Century Fox movies and everything are now owned by Disney. So there's a lot of buying and selling and combining with these companies too, that are going to change the face of what we see. And what I'm saying too in streaming, that a lot of these companies that people, the big push was to go to streaming to save money, but a lot of them now are combining and adding services, and they're raising their rates because they want to earn a profit. AT&T just went, when I started with AT&T DirecTV Now, a year ago, not even a year ago, it was $35 for 65 channels. And then it went to $40 within a couple of months of me having the service. And now they went to $50 for 43 channels. They went from 65 to 43 channels, and they raised the price. And then they have another service for $65 that still has less channels than what's available for the current $40 plan, because they want to they're not making a profit, and they want to get it to where it's profitable. But when you start getting up to $65 for that service, by the time you pay for your internet and so on, you're getting pretty close to what it's costing you for your cable. So you're not saving any money. So you have to be careful in what streaming service you choose, or it can end up costing you still a ton of money. And now they're talking about, some states are talking about charging taxes for the streaming, because you got all these fees on cable, but they're not getting those with streaming. And so that's one reason it keeps the price down a little bit on streaming. And now you may start seeing some taxes being added to those. So that's going to raise those rates as well. Any other comments on that? Let's see. I don't see anything online. So let's continue. How are we doing time-wise? We're not too bad.
15 or so.
Okay. I probably won't get to everything. The next item is the Microsoft throws in the towel. Boy, this is a big transition, isn't it? But this one, Microsoft throws in the towel on Windows 10 1809. The company largely stopped distributing the October 2018 update in March, apparently deciding to simply skip one feature upgrade to solve the problem of two on a collision course. Microsoft has given up on version 1809, the troubled featured upgrade of last year. And there's a new one coming out, which is 1903 is going to be the next one, which if you think 03, that's January, February, March, well, it's gone into April and it's not going to be released. They're calling it the April version, and it's not going to be available until May. But May sounds like a long ways away, but you're only talking a few weeks more. So they're getting close to releasing it. In fact, I think Stan on the computer that CFCS is watching this presentation on is already in the beta version of the 1903 version. I have not done that. I'm going to wait till the released version comes out. But now, how do you know which version you have? Let's go ahead and minimize this for a moment. If you come down here to where it says type here to search, if you type in WinVer, and you can do this from the run command as well, you'll see here this I have version 1809, and then it gives a build number, but that really doesn't matter. You can see that I'm running 1809. If you want to see what you're running, if you're running 1803, you've skipped the 1809 and don't have it. Now, what I was concerned about, and I've talked a little bit about it in the last couple of months here at the WinSIG, whether or not you're going to be able to skip the 1809. Because if you remember back in the early Windows days, for those of you who've been around a while, they would come up with a service pack for a particular version of Windows, and you'd have to run that service pack in order to go to the next version. So my concern was, well, are you going to have to go to the 1809 version of Windows 10 before you can go to the 1903? What I'm reading, and no one has said it directly, but what you can see from this article where they're giving up on the 1809, they're implying that if you're running the 1803, you're going to be able to go to the 1903 without a problem and do the upgrade at one time, as opposed to doing it in two stages. So that's good. However, a lot of people, and I know there's a few of you out there who don't like going to the next version. And so when we all go to 1903, you may want to say, well, I'll go to the 1809, but that's still, since they're still having issues with it, that might not be the best thing to do either. So you might just want to skip the 1803, wait a month if you want, and then go to the 1903. Any comments from anyone? I'm not seeing anything online.
Interesting towards the bottom, Add Duplex, a Lithuanian company embedded in thousands of Windows Store apps. Interesting.
Yeah.
But only 26% of those surveyed are on the 1809.
Yeah, I've been hearing the numbers at around 10%. Have gone to 1809, so it is a very low number. And so was it 10 or was it 20%? But it's no more than 20%. So it's going to be a big shift for people, because there were quite a bit of additions and changes in the 1809. But those will all be incorporated in the 1903, along with all of the new things that they're adding and changing as well. This was, the next item is the Snip and Sketch. And I actually posted this article in my newsletter. If you're not a subscriber of the newsletter, if you go to my huey.net/WinSIG, or if you just go to huey.net, you'll see on the right-hand side the WinSIG newsletter sign up. Make sure you sign up for that, and you'll get the newsletter every month. It's once a month. I post the topics that were covered last month, the ones that are going to be covered at the next meeting, and usually an article that's not anywhere else on there, and that's usually sent out a few days before the presentation or the Sunday WinSIG meeting, so you'll know what's there. And there'll be a link also to the video from the last meeting, because I record all of these meetings. This meeting is being recorded as well, hopefully, and I post them on the WinSIG website for the particular page for the meeting. So the page that we're looking at now, after today, it usually takes me a day or two to get it up there. There'll be a link. Actually, it'll be embedded in the page. Will be the recording of this meeting on this same page that we're on now. And you can go back to previous meetings, see what the topics are, and watch those videos as well. So please make sure that you're subscribed to the newsletter, and you'll be getting those notices, and read them. I noticed that only about 55% of you open the emails, because I have MailChimp, and MailChimp keeps track of that, and they can tell whether you've opened it or not. So please read the emails that I send out. And if you signed up for it and you're not getting them, check your spam folder. Okay, the next, and like I was saying, the snip and sketch I'm talking about in the newsletter itself, but snip and sketch takes the place of what was called before. This is the old one, the snipping tool. This is what the snipping tool would look like, but now it's, if you click on it, you can still use the old snipping tool, but it says snipping tool is moving, try snip and sketch. Now, how do you use it? The article that's posted in the newsletter is there, and you can click on this article here, but just to show you, I'm going to click on snip and sketch. I click on new. It then grays out my screen. I can take an area right here and say, okay, let's take this right here. That's the area that I want to grab. I let go of it. It then grabs it. It creates what is going to be, I can use it for a markup. I can make notes of it. I can crop it. I can highlight something in it. I can take an arrow and so let's take, we'll take red and we'll.
Cool. And you can save that. I see the.
Right, and then you can save it here.
Yep.
As a JPEG.
Terrific.
And so at any time, very easily, you can save anything on your screen as a JPEG. You can mark it up. You can have a ruler. Close that. If you've got a protractor, you can highlight something. And then you can crop it. So if you decide, okay, I just want this, I can take this and then crop it. I can either hit the check mark or this. I said don't do it. I can say new. I can open up one that's already out there and so on. It's very simple, built into Windows, and very simple to do any kind of a screen capture and make a JPEG out of it, and then share it to continue. You can share it to your friends. You can share it on Facebook. And a lot of times you go to a website. Let's go to the next website here. Let's go here. There's a way of using this. What I like is, okay, here is a screen capture. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just open up Snip and Sketch. Tell it I want new. It grays it. I just highlight, drag my mouse, say okay this, let go of it. There it is. I can save it. Now I've got that picture. So if you're not sure how to save an image, or you want to save part of an image, you want to save something, this is the way to do it. Very simple, very easily, and it's built into Windows. I use it all the time, and I love it. I've been using the original, the Snipping Tool, for years. It's been part of Windows for several versions, going back to before Windows 10. I think it's Windows 7 it came out, and it was it worked very similar to it. I also use Snagit on my computer, and when I have Snagit running, it actually will go to the Snagit editor, and I can even edit it even more. So that's the Snip and Sketch. I did bring up the active hours, and then that went away, so let's bring it back up. How to use the active hours. Have you ever had a problem when you're in the middle of something, all of a sudden your computer is saying we're going to reboot, and you don't want it to? Well, what the active hours does is you can set active hours, and it won't reboot automatically during those hours. It may do everything up to that point. In other words, it may still in the background be doing the update, but when it gets to the point where the update says, okay, now you have to reboot, it's not going to do it then, because you're in your active hours, and it just sits there waiting for you either to get past the active hours or to be shutting down. So let's see how you get there. What you do is there's several ways you can do this, but the Windows settings is the best and best way to do it. But if you go to your Start and then go to Settings, then go to your Update and Security, change active hours. And I have mine set from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Now you don't have a choice. You don't have weekend hours, and you can set this. You do have a limit of 18 hours. So the maximum is 18 hours. So somewhere in there, it's going to reboot if you've got it on, or when you shut down. But if you don't want it to reboot automatically, in other words, you're doing a presentation like this, and it may still be doing the update in the background, or doing something in the background, but when it gets to the point where it is going to reboot you, it's not going to do it. And that's the good thing about it. However, it still can slow your system down while it's doing whatever it's supposed to be, whatever it's doing in the meantime. But that's the active hours, and then this article goes on to some other ways in which you can change it as well. But it's good to know that you can do that. The Microsoft, this week came out and says you really don't need to use, let's get the article up here, confirms you really don't need to safely remove USB flash drives anymore. However, before you rush out and say, oh, I'm not going to ever do that again, bear in mind this changed, number one, with the 1809 version of Windows 10. And it's not complete. So even if you're running, and Clint was very nice, Clint's on here today, and I would like to say thanks for reminding me to remind you to don't disregard this if you're running the 1809, and it's probably not a good idea to disregard it entirely anyway. But let's see, I wanted to do something here for a moment. Just give me 1 minute, and I don't remember how to do this. I'm doing something in the background that you're not seeing.
I'll mention something.
Okay.
The file is still being copied. You probably may wind up losing everything.
Yeah, you don't want to do this while the file is being copied. But when it's not being copied, it used to, a lot of times it would come up and say it's a file is in use and you can't even release it. Now you'll see that that's changed, and so you kind of get mixed messages with it. But let's see if I can find where that setting was. It may not be in this article. Support guidance. Let's go ahead and look at this. Yeah, it was here. In order to find it, so what I did is I have an SD card on my system right now, and that's here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to think, is this? No, it's not here. I have to go to here and then go to right mouse click this and go to disk management. This is drive F that we're looking at. This is how you can tell, number one, is if the setting is in use. So drive F, I highlight it, I come down here, and I go to properties. And under properties, that isn't it either. Maybe it was up here. Well, I'm not seeing it now. Okay, I did it, and it worked, but now I can't. How you change drive letter format? No, we don't have format for sure. Property, it was properties. Anyway, there's a tool here. Let's go back to the article and see. You go to the drive and you go to properties, and I should see policies, and I'm not seeing it. When you see policies, it should say quick removal default. That should be set. This isn't the 1809 version. You got to make sure that that's on for this to work in the 1809. It's being improved and apparently will be better and more automatic in the 1903 version. But all of the articles do say that if something's being written to, you can and probably will corrupt the data if you pull it out while it's being written to. But when it's stopped being written to, you shouldn't have to come down here. And let's see, can you see that? I guess you can almost see it. I've got something blocking it, so let me do that again. Right here, you'll see I can eject it. And when I tell it to eject, and I'm going to do it from here, it should have come up and said you can safely remove. It didn't. I'm not There it is. Safe to remove the hardware. And I can now take it out. You won't have to do that in the 1903 version if it's not being written to. If it's being written to, or if you're not sure, do the eject. Is the best way to do it. I've extracted it now and it's gone. So it's not quite as dangerous for you to pull it out if it's been there and you haven't accessed the drive, the USB drive or the SD card or something. But to be totally safe, always eject. But it's not as, usually when you pull it out, you say, oh, I shouldn't have done that. And you're always scared that you've done something wrong. Well, in most cases, you should be okay. The last three articles here, I'm probably not going to have time for, so we'll cut it at this point. But if you're interested in Task Manager, there's a guide to Task Manager. I'll just bring up the article so you can see what it looks like. And there's lots of screen captures, and it talks about Task Manager and all the things it does and information about it. So it's a pretty good guide for Task Manager. And the Action Center, how to use and customize it. Are you familiar with the Action Center? That's if you come over here and you get this. You may have a bunch of notifications. You have boxes here. You can turn on and off some of these boxes. You can have more. You can add different ones to it and so on. By going to this article, you'll be able to see what some of the choices are to running it. View notifications. You can select which notifications you want to show up. If you're getting a lot of notifications and you never look at them, all you have to do, and you have to clear them each time, you can set which things will show up in that notifications in the Action Center. You can change some of the boxes and what they are and so on. And so this is a very useful tool, but you may have to set it up for it to work for you. And this article will tell you how to do that. And then the final item for today is the Microsoft Edge, which is the browser from Microsoft. Microsoft is giving up on it as well, but they're not going to throw it away. What they're going to do is change the basic engine in their browser from their own coding, which is Microsoft Edge, and they made a deal with Google, and they're going to use the Chromium browser as the basis of Edge. So any of the add-ons and tasks that you're using in Chrome will eventually be able to be used in Microsoft Edge in the new version. So it's going to be Chrome with the Microsoft Touch and the Microsoft Look and the Microsoft information, but it's even going to import your Chrome settings into Edge. And so all of your bookmarks and all of your add-ons and so on should come into Edge once it's finalized. It's still in the testing stage. However, there is an insider add-on where you can get the beta version and install it. I've not done that yet. I'm waiting for it to get, probably when I do the 1903 update, and it hopefully will be in there, and I'll go ahead and do the update then and start using the newer Edge. It's still changing very drastically from week to week and sometimes even more often than that, and I'm not ready to do a lot of testing of it. I do use Chrome as my basic browser now. That may change. And as a thought about that, every year I try to do a new topic for my presentations that I do for groups around the country. And this past year, it's been on cutting the cord. One year it was on Evernote. Another time it was on ID theft and so on. So I have a lot of topics out there. But I think the one for this year, what I'm going to put together is what is a browser, a lot of the settings in the various browsers, and then comparing them, and then talking about add-ons and different things that you can do. And I'm going to show you some of the things that I do in my browser that you probably wish you could do and didn't realize you could do it just with your browser. And I'm going to be working on that and hopefully have it done by the APCUG conference, which will be in Zephyr Hills, Florida in November. Please plan on attending. That will be a live come to the conference, but I think they may be working on some ways to do either some or all of the presentations online as well. But it's in November. Please keep tuned to APCUG and to the dates. And it's going to be a Saturday afternoon, Sunday morning with lots of good presentations and lots of computer users from Florida and around the country will be there. So on that note, I'm going to say thanks for joining. Let me bring up my slide and say thanks for joining the Central Florida Computer Society and the Windows Special Interest Group. I am going to stop the recording, and then I will open it up for some questions and answers before I go. So I'm going to